Welcome back from the break. Now, after talking about the foreign policy of the González government during this gap between 1982 and 1996, we're going to talk about the dirty war against ETA. As you can remember from previous classes, ETA was this vast pro-independence terrorist organization that killed over 800 people in Spain. And they actually started killing not that much earlier than the end of Francoism. It was actually in the early 70s, even though the organization was created before. But against all odds, during the transition to democracy, ETA is not dissolved. ETA actually increased its action. You can see in the chart, probably you can see it better in the PowerPoint at home. Between 1978 and 1980 was actually the time when ETA was more active. They were killing over 80 people, almost 100 people per year. Remember that mostly these objectives were members of the police forces, were members of the military, politicians, judges, university professors. So a specific set of people that were quite connected to the interests of the state. So the González government, when they took office in 1982, we cannot talk about the whole cabinet because this has not been proved, but it's been clear that the government organized and funded death squads. These death squads have been that are called GAL, Grupo Antiterrorista de Liberación. These death squads worked between 1983 and 1987. It's proven that they were funded by the government through reserved parts of the budget that did not have to address what the specific purpose of the spending was. And actually what they were doing, they were hiring these paramilitary, by the end of the day, we still have them nowadays. I cannot find the word in English right now, but you know what I mean. These kind of people that participate now in foreign conflicts and they just get paid to do so. So this was the case as well. Don't think only about members of the police forces in Spain taking part in GAL. Actually, most of them were either French, Portuguese, some Spanish, but by the end of the day were people that were being hired by the Spanish government, obviously confidentially, to attack ETA interests. How did they do so? They actually, over this period of time, GAL killed that is proven, 26 members of ETA. They kidnapped other members as well, and they tried to stop the action of ETA. This is absolutely terrible. How was this discovered? Actually, it was a media investigation by journalists, eventually in the periodical El Mundo, that the undercover, that discover all this action by the government, and this only actually made it to the news with the cooperation of the government at the time from 1994. Remember that the GAL finished in 1987, but only in 1994 this kind of made it to the public, and it was common knowledge of the people. What was the result of GAL? Besides delegitimizing completely rule of law in Spain, in a sense, by the end of the day, the government was organizing these paramilitary death squads that were attacking civilians, in a sense, and if they were terrorists, they were being killed, they were not being processed whatsoever. So this resulted in the Minister of Interior, that it's actually it's been traditionally the second in charge. Behind the Presidente del Gobierno, you normally have the Vice President, normally is the Ministro del Interior. So the Minister of the Interior at the time, José Barrionuevo, was sentenced to 10 years in jail. His Secretary of Security, Rafael Vera, was also sentenced to 10 years to jail. Members of the Guardia Civil, for example, Enrique Galindo, was sentenced to 75 years in jail. And the civil governor at the time of Guipúzcoa, Julen Elorriaga, was also sentenced to 71 years in jail. Actually, now Barrionuevo and Vera have left prison. They are not prison anymore because they served their sentence. And there's always been a discussion whether Felipe González, the president, was aware of what was going on with GAL. GAL is considered traditionally another form of corruption of this government, but there were more. And actually, I'm going to bring together these two videos, and we're going to talk about corruption during the González government as well. And corruption, as I said, by the end of the day, when you have a dominant party system, it's quite likely that corruption is going to appear, because by the end of the day, politicians feel comfortable in power, and they understand as common practice things that are, well, unethical and many times illegal. There are several cases, for example, Caso Filesa, where actually a company was dismantled by the state and members of the government took money of dismantling that company. Caso Rumasa as well, that was about funding the party. So PSOE was asking companies to pay money to get public contracts. Caso Gal, we've talked about it, these death squads. Or Caso Guerra, actually the brother of the vice president, was positioning in the public administration people without the due process to get to that position, without the requirements to get to that position. So we see how the government, there are many cases, they are not massive, of course there are massive cases because it's public money that is being stolen. There are many cases, and this is creating a lot of erosion in the government. It's causing pain. It's hitting the government badly. And this made it to the public culture. At the time, in 1994, already remember the elections were in 1993, but 1994, 1995, with the economic crisis, this is common talk in Spain, how corrupt the government is and how the socialists are stealing money from the state and they're benefiting themselves and the party because of being for so long in the structure of the state. And we can see this in newspapers. This was a common issue on the newspapers and the media. For example, in El Mundo, as I said, that was the newspaper that showed what was happening with El Gal. And for example, also in comics, this is another case of the chief of the Guardia Civil, one of the police branches, that actually he himself stole money from the Guardia Civil, millions and millions of pesetas at that time. And this actually had a high political cost for PSOE, and this is one of the key reasons why they lost the elections in 1996. They had to call snap elections, and in 1996 they lost for the first time against Partido Popular, against José María Aznar, who was going to be the president of the government in Spain. And try to listen to this clip at home. I'm going to play it, I'm going to try to translate it, but you will see that his discourse, Aznar, is using corruption, is using González as who is to blame for the whole situation of the country.
En las actuales circunstancias no le queda más que una salida moral: presentar su renuncia al rey y aconsejarle respecto a qué miembro de su partido reúne las mejores condiciones para sustituirlo. Váyase, señor González, no le queda ninguna otra salida moral, porque usted es el principal y primer responsable de la situación económica.
Economic situation.
Usted es el principal y primer responsable de los casos de corrupción y del clima general de corrupción en España.
Clima general de corrupción, that means the general climate of corruption in the country. And that's exactly what happened. That an atmosphere of corruption, that every institution of the state was corrupted. That's what eroded the government so badly, and that made González lose the elections in 1996.
Es posible.
So this was it for today's class. I'll see you again on Wednesday when we continue actually with José María Aznar government, and we're going to advance between 1996 and 2004, and we'll see how Spain changed over that period of time. So have a nice week. I'll see you on Wednesday.